Super Bowl 58 is upon us, so let's preview this matchup between the 49ers and the Chiefs. Give you some historical facts, stats, and some best bets to put some money in your pocket. Because one of these teams will go away with the Vince Lombardi Trophy. The shot clock is on, and it's time to ball. Hello, everyone. I'm Matthew George. All right, let's preview this game here as the 49ers are favored at 2.5 with the over-under of 47.5 with the money line at minus 130 for the 49ers at plus 110 for the Chiefs. Now, if you want my pick for this game straight up, I want the 49ers to win. And it's not just because that this team, in my opinion, is probably the best team in the NFL, but because I want a new team to win. We all know that Patrick Mahomes throughout his entire career has always been great, finding ways to make himself known to be competing for another Super Bowl. We've seen this time and time again from him. He wants somebody new, and not only do I think that these two teams deserve to be in the Super Bowl, but the 49ers are going to be the better team offensively and defensively. You look down the roster, especially on offense, completely stacked. Completely stacked. Brock Purdy knows how to handle his offense. So you have a guy that can sling the ball with two better receivers in the NFL with Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, and then have one of the best running backs who just won offensive player of the year in Christian McCaffrey. Like, you can't say nothing more about this team. Hence why the books favored the 49ers to win this game. But let's look at this at a historical standpoint. The funny thing is that the Chiefs are actually 8-7 in terms of that matchup. 8-7-0 against the 49ers. The last matchup was actually 2 years ago. October 23rd, 2022, when the Chiefs dominated 44-23. But that's when Jimmy Garoppolo was still on this team. And Brock Purdy was backing up Jimmy Garoppolo. They scored 30 plus points in the second half of that game. Here's the funny thing. The last time that these two teams met in the playoffs was back in Super Bowl 54. February 2nd, 2019. Again, Jimmy Garoppolo against Patrick Mahomes. And the funny thing is that these two quarterbacks, both threw 2 picks. But the offense for the Chiefs was undeniable when Patrick Mahomes still had Tyreek Hill. And the running back situation for the Chiefs was much better. Bigger impact on offense on both ends of the field, offensively and defensively for the Chiefs. They were the better team during that time. But now it comes down to these two teams, and fast forward to now. It's a much different team compared to 5 years ago between these two teams. Obviously, the biggest one is the quarterback situation with the 49ers. Now, Brock Purdy is taking the helm, aside from not from Jimmy Garoppolo. And the receiving core has changed for the Chiefs. Obviously, Travis Kelce's still there, but the receiving core on the wide receiver end has changed, I would say, drastically. Rashee Rice, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I mean, they're great. They're good, but they're not Tyreek Hill. Obviously, he has his own thing nowadays. Now he's with Miami, and they still lost. So here's the thing. If you want the better team, it is the 49ers. That is my pick as well. So let's preview these two teams in terms of the quarterback situation first. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, let's start off with him first. 4 touchdowns in the playoff run with no interceptions. And he's gone over 200 plus yards in all of the playoff games. 262, 215, and 241 respectively. And he's been able to just sling down the ball every single time. And it's always been a struggle. It has been a struggle bus for Patrick Mahomes throughout the entire season, but it seems like his receivers are stepping up big time, catching the balls and actually making them and converting for touchdowns. And it's not just Travis Kelce that's actually just making the plays. But this is a bigger spot for Patrick Mahomes because of everything that he's gone through with this team throughout the entire season and into the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see how Patrick Mahomes does with this team and try to compete for another Super Bowl win. Onto the other side with Brock Purdy, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. It did have a struggle against the Lions, barely squeaking a win. To be honest, I thought they were going to lose that game against the Lions, but there was some questionable, like we mentioned in last episode, there were some questionable decision making from Dan Campbell. But I think that Brock Purdy has been one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Obviously, he's not as better than Patrick Mahomes per se in terms of quarterbacks, but he has the tenacity, he has the IQ, and he has the receivers to do it. If you have Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle, like, who can stop you? All you got to do is just sling the ball to them, bam, easy touchdown. Now, I want to give you 2 key players that you should watch out for. One for each team. Obviously, the biggest one for the 49ers is Christian McCaffrey. 2 touchdowns in each of the playoff games. 2 against the Packers, 2 against the Lions. And 90 plus yards for both of those games. How can you not, first of all, how can you not take him to score 2 touchdowns again? That is an easy bet. But we'll go into that more into details later. But not only that, he can also be easily checked down and be able to pick up a couple of yards for you when there's nothing going for Brock Purdy and his receivers. On a 2nd and 5, he can just get you right into it for a first down. But the key reason is that he can dominate, push his way through in the red zone and just score a touchdown. So Christian McCaffrey is a key player to watch for the 49ers. And obviously on the other side, you gotta go with Travis Kelce. I mean, this guy completely balled out, caught every single ball that was thrown to him against the Ravens. 11 for 11, 116 yards and a touchdown. And not only that, he also had 2 touchdowns in the game of the divisional round against the Bills. So, he's been a major impact throughout the playoffs. Meanwhile, throughout the entire season, I mean, he barely didn't do anything. How crazy is that? 984 yards and 5 touchdowns throughout the entire season. Now he has 3 touchdowns and 262 yards in just 3 playoff games. What a major difference and what a major impact Travis Kelce has made, especially for the playoffs for the Chiefs. It's why they've been able to win and make it to the Super Bowl. One of the main reasons why. Of course, we have Rashid Rice that also is making the plays for him as well, downfield. But Travis Kelce is one of the big reasons why that the Chiefs were able to dominate and win and go to the Super Bowl. Alright, when we return, we'll look at the Chargers public poll on Instagram asking the simple question: who is your pick to win this year's Super Bowl? And we got some betting props that can land some money in your pocket. I got 2 picks that are crazy enough that just might hit for this year's Super Bowl. Alright, it's time to take a timeout. Now, full disclaimer, I'm not going to go into this full debate about the NFL being scripted, that these teams didn't deserve to be in the playoffs and didn't deserve to be in the Super Bowl, that we wanted better teams, new teams to be in the Super Bowl. It's in retrospect, these teams deserve to be in the Super Bowl because of the way they played in the championship round. No matter what people say and how the players do throughout the entire season and into the playoffs, this is what we have. This is the matchup that we have, and what it turned out to be. Alright, the public has made their pick for this year's Super Bowl, and that is the subject of the Sarge's public poll. I greatly appreciate everyone taking the time to vote on Instagram as well. So, out of 18 votes, 10 went to the Chiefs, and 8 went to the 49ers. Now, I understand why. Popularity, first of all, of Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and of course, Taylor Swift. That's one of the bigger reasons. But also, I mean, you can't discredit Patrick Mahomes and what he's done. Like we mentioned before, he's been able to find ways and be able to sling the ball downfield and be able to score. And be a solidifying quarterback throughout this entire season and into the postseason. I gotta go with the 44%, guys, because the 49ers are the better team, and I hate to say that, but Kyle Shanahan definitely deserves it to be here. He's done it once before, and he could do it again. He's had almost as a similar team back in that 2019 team. I didn't even realize this until looking at the box score. Raheem Mostert was on the running back position for the 49ers. And now you have a bigger upgrade with Christian McCaffrey, who just won Offensive Player of the Year. Like, you gotta make it. You gotta find a way to have a game plan and be able to dominate, especially in the red zone. Once Brock Purdy makes it to the red zone, Christian McCaffrey could just go right in for a touchdown. That's easy. So that's going to be the main factor for the 49ers, because if they can pin through the defense of the Chiefs, easy money. And they could even cover that 47, which we'll get into right now. As you mentioned before, the 49ers are favored at -2.5 with the over-under of 47.5. Now, first off, I believe that this game will cover the spread, which the 49ers will do. And this game will go over. Because I think that the 49ers are the better team, both of these teams can still offensively score the ball. That's not surprising, right? So the 49ers will be able to, I think they'll be able to cover that number, to be honest with you. They have scored more, I believe that they will score 27 to 30 points and cover the number. The Chiefs will just probably score as well, but the dominating team like San Francisco. So let's give you some props that can give you some money in your pocket as well. If you want to put this into a same game parlay, which I did as well, I will give you guys my same game parlay later. But let's give you some props and that you put some money in your pocket to put into that parlay. First off, we'll go on to the quarterback situation between Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy. First off with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, as you can see, has his props up there, and there's two notable ones that I want to give you guys, and then you can put in a bet. Patrick Mahomes over his passing TDs. Patrick Mahomes under in terms of his rushing yards, and over of his first quarter passing yards. The first off was the first quarter passing yards. That's easy. He could easily sling it downfield, be able to just hit Travis Kelce and be able to hit that over on 52.5. That's not hard. The interesting one is his passing TDs of 1.5. Because he could be able, I think he'll be able to throw those touchdowns to one to Travis Kelce, one to Rashid Rice, or even one to Isaiah Pacheco if they're in the red zone and they're in trouble. But I would take that over because I think that the 49ers have great defensively, I think Patrick Mahomes still will be able to find a way in the red zone to be able to score a touchdown. Don't discredit, though. The 49ers defense is fantastic. Go over to Brock Purdy. I think there's only two things that could be really solidifying for him in terms of betting, and that is his over passing yards and over of his passing TDs. Now, this one is more interesting because I think that Brock Purdy can score 3 touchdowns. 3. So definitely goes over 1.5. He'll have 3 touchdowns in this game. Not only that, his 246.5 yards. That is an easy over, in my opinion, because in these past 2 playoff games, divisional and championship round against the Lions, and then the divisional round against the Packers, 252 against the Packers, 267 in terms of passing yards for Brock Purdy against the Lions. The 246.5 seems pretty low. I get it. It's against the Chiefs. This is much different. The passing defense of the Lions and the Packers is not better compared to the passing defense of the Chiefs. But that can't discredit on how good the wide receivers are for the 49ers, and that's why Brock Purdy can just be able to dominate and sling the ball and just be able to throw downfield and be able to hit his receivers. Next up, there are 3 players that I want to key up for in terms of an anytime touchdown scorer. Now, first up with the running backs, it's got to be Christian McCaffrey. Like I just mentioned, he is at minus 230 to score an anytime touchdown. The same thing with that Isaiah Pacheco. That wouldn't be surprising either. But Christian McCaffrey is an easy bet to put in a parlay. If you want the 49ers to win, take the minus 2.5, take the over, or take the money line at minus 130 and put Christian McCaffrey into that parlay. Get a couple bucks in there and easy money. If you want the Chiefs to win, that puts even more money in your pocket, up plus 2.5, with the money line of plus 110, and then you put Isaiah Pacheco in there at minus 130. Now, the reason why I put Elijah Mitchell in there, in that championship game against the Lions, Christian McCaffrey got hit in the head towards the end of the game, and Elijah Mitchell subbed in for him, and he scored a touchdown. So maybe a little bit of a dark horse pick in terms of trying to put into a single parlay. That would be funny. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in this game. If Christian McCaffrey gets banged up a little bit and Elijah Mitchell comes into the red zone, boom, touchdown. Now, in terms of wide receivers, it's a little bit difficult because both these teams have good wide receivers. Great wide receivers if you're talking about the 49ers. Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk at plus 155 and Deebo Samuel at plus 140. It's very interesting that Brandon Ayuk has more value than Deebo Samuel. Because the funny thing is that Brandon Ayuk actually scored a touchdown against the Lions. Deebo Samuel only had 89 yards. He didn't score a touchdown. He was banged up in the previous game against the Packers. So it's interesting that Brandon Ayuk has more value. But you could put him in a same-game parlay, or you would just take him take him straight up and get a little shekels and get a couple of shekels in there. Rashid Rice is also another one as well, but that's an easy pick for him to score a touchdown because that's Patrick Mahomes' number one wide receiver. Obviously, Marquez Valdez-Scantling can be another option for him, but Rashid Rice, easy pick. Now, in terms of the tight end matchup between Travis Kelce and George Kittle, I mean, you got to take Travis Kelce, right? Even though he's only at plus 100, which is interesting, and he's getting plus money. Yeah, you get a value from him with plus money, boom, put him right to a parlay. That'd be easy. George Kittle is an interesting one, obviously, because he didn't really impact the game as much in these playoffs. He only had 27 yards and 2 receptions against the Lions. But it's very interesting that he's only getting that much money. Now let's take a look at some notable player props, because there are a lot of value that you can get with any of these players in terms of their receiving yards, in terms of rushing. But the two main players that I want to look at in this one is Travis Kelce and Christian McCaffrey. Like I mentioned, that these two players are the key players from both of their respective teams to make a play and make an impact in the Super Bowl matchup. Now, in terms of the props, let's take Travis Kelce over his receptions, because 6.5 at minus 150. Come on, 11 receptions. Do I have to say it again? 11 receptions against the Ravens. He had 6 against Baltimore. Excuse me. He had 6 against Buffalo and 10 against Miami. How does this not go over? The only one was just against the Bills because the Bills had a better defense. But that can't state enough. I can't say this enough. Patrick Mahomes will find a way to get the ball to Travis Kelce. No ifs, ands, or buts. So take his receptions over 6.5. The other one is Christian McCaffrey over his rushing yards. At 89.5, he's had, like I said before, 90 plus yards in terms of rushing in both of these playoff games. And just not even that, towards the end of the season, 103 yards against Baltimore, even though they lost, and 115 against the Cardinals. So, what a way for him to cap off the entire season for Christian McCaffrey. That's why you should be able to get an easy over in terms of his rushing yards. Now, in terms of these two players, let's give you a crazy props that I think would probably hit as well in terms of the Super Bowl matchup. First off, like we mentioned with Christian McCaffrey, since he's been so dominant, why not take him for 2+ rushing touchdowns at plus 410? He's done it his past two games in the championship and the divisional rounds. But why not? He can't do it again. Find him in the red zone where Brock Purdy can just lob the ball up to him or just hand it off to him in the red zone. Boom, touchdown. How can you not take that? The more interesting one is Travis Kelce to catch every single one of his targets. Now, like I mentioned before, 11 targets. He caught every single ball from Patrick Mahomes in the game against Baltimore. Although it's a little rare for a guy to do it again. I mean, if you just give him 6 receptions or 7 receptions and he catches all of them, bam, that goes to bet at plus 800. Wow, what a value that is for him to score, for him to have that. And it's good that the books actually gave something like that as well, because if you've done it once, I mean, hey, he could do it again. All right, so hopefully we give you some good bets and some props to give you some money in your pocket for this Super Bowl matchup. And speaking of, let's give you my same game parlay for this game. And I went with all player props. So first off, Patrick Mahomes to have 200 plus yards, Christian McCaffrey to have 225 plus yards, Travis Kelce to have 5 plus receptions, George Kittle to have 3+ receptions, Christian McCaffrey to have 60+ yards, Isaiah Pacheco 60+ yards, George Kittle, 25 plus yards in terms of his receiving. Brandon Ayuk, receiving, 40 plus yards. Deebo Samuel, 25 plus receiving yards. Travis Kelce, 60 plus yards. Receiving rights, 40 plus receiving yards. And Christian McCaffrey and Travis Kelce to have an anytime touchdown. A lot of that. $5 will give you 172 at plus 33.40. We're asking a lot, but it's just the minimums, and probably the bare minimum for some of the players. But it gives you a lot of value, and you can put more parlay and put more bets into the parlay. So hopefully this hits, and hopefully we can give. Hopefully, if you want to take some of the bets that I put down as well, there's a lot of value that we mentioned as well. So hopefully this hits. And again, my pick for Super Bowl 58 is the 49ers. Well, thank you all so much for watching. Much appreciated again to everyone who participated in the poll. We'll be talking more basketball in terms of the NBA and college basketball as well, as the NBA All-Star break is coming up, with the trade deadline just happened this past week, as we're on the date of February 10th, and the continuation of conference play in men's and women's basketball. Alright, be sure to also check out my social medias in Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And be sure to subscribe here on the YouTube as well, as the Sergeant's Life continues on throughout the year. Alright, let's go 49ers! Alright, everybody. Game, set, match.